Welcome. Today's guest is someone whose story at first glance sounds like something you've heard before. A man who hit rock bottom, faced death, and somehow found his way back to life again. But what makes this conversation different is not just what he went through, it's what he discovered on the other side that most people never talk about, really. Because the truth is, a lot of people are searching for change right now on Google, YouTube, podcasts like this, but very few actually understand what it takes to go from surviving to truly living. So today isn't just about hearing a story, it's about understanding what separates the people who stay stuck from the ones who actually transform. Welcome to the show, Terrance Ogden.
Glad to be
So
here. Thank you for having me.
very good, man. Very good. Let me start here. But you know, Terrance Ogden, who is that? That's for someone hearing your name for the first time, what's the story that brought you to this moment here?
So, who is Terrance Ogden? I have to tell a little bit of my backstory. And 24 years ago, I was strung out on drugs, in and out of jails, homeless, and into a bunch of nefarious acts to do the things that I had to do to get the things that I needed. And what happened was I was pretty much at my rope's end. And there's a whole story on how I got there. But basically, a man saw me at the end of his ropes and reached his hand out to me. And he asked me to come back. And that's something that I hadn't heard for a long time. Most people really didn't want me around. And it was something that changed me. And this man changed my life. He taught me a new way to live that I might have known pieces of it, but I didn't know what he was going to teach me. And my life has changed dramatically. And today, I'm 24 years clean and sober, and I attack the hard things in life that most people, including myself, are afraid to do, because through that, I have found purpose and the ability to overcome what seems impossible.
You know, people tend to hear about this death to life thing and think they know that, well, like your story or a similar story. But I don't know, what's part of that journey that you experienced that people completely misunderstand about you?
Part of the journey was that Kenny was the guy, he was my mentor, and he made everything really simple for me. And one of the first things he said to me was like, you don't have, the only thing you have to change is everything. And for me, man, this light is really bright on me. Let me see if I can fix that.
It's like the light of heaven shining down on
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. That was
All right. That's, that's a little better.
much better.
So I had to take a lot of hard looks, and for transformation to happen, most of the time, for most people, we're afraid to look at the things we don't want to look at. We tried to avoid the hard thing that is what's limiting us to becoming who we're meant to be.
I want to interject on something. We were watching something last night on TV actually, and I was talking about this little island where the crime rate's really high, and these bunch of boys just gather just to survive, and the crime rate's really high because they're just living off the street and they don't know any better. And you mentioned that you're homeless and in and out of jail, and a lot of people, whether that jail is metaphoric or reality, they just think that they're stuck and that's just their life for the rest of their life. What makes your story different, and how did you go from homeless, and what was this Kenny? What did he do to say that you were able to receive?
So I'd had people try to help me in the past, and my upbringing, I did a lot of growing up on a cattle ranch down in South Texas, and my grandfather kind of stepped in as the patriarch, and he was a tough hombre, and he was really a take no crap kind of guy. And he taught me a lot of stuff. He taught me how to be a man, be tough, don't ask questions, don't ask for help, get it done, and that's all great information to a certain point. The thing with Kenny, and it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do, was to ask another man to help me out, because that mentality that was instilled in me, and I think a lot of guys go through that. I know for myself, I felt that that was a weakness, and I didn't want to show anybody in the world that I was weak. When Kenny approached me, Kenny has a backstory of his own. He was strung out, and Kenny was a bank robber, and he did some time in Leavenworth. He did 12 years in Leavenworth for bank robbery. The last 3 years of that time he was in prison, he got clean. And when he got out, he felt that for some reason that he was saved from that, that internal jail that we have a tendency to put ourselves in. And he was shown a new way to live. And his whole mentality, one of the things that really stuck with me that he said was, the meaning of life is to show another man his. And that resonated very strong with me. And I've adopted that mentality into my life. But a lot of what Kenny taught me was, there's all these things in life that we avoid and we try to run from. And usually those are the things that we need to address. So one of the big things with him was, do those things. You don't have to like those things. Go have that experience and find out what it is that you were trying to avoid from that, and use it as a learning experience. Maybe it's something you're into after that and you continue to do it. Maybe it's not. Either way, it's a learning experience. And I knew Kenny was at one point in his life just as messed up as I was. And I saw that something was working in his life. And I really just thought, maybe I had nowhere else to go. Maybe if I just do what this guy does, maybe I could get what this guy has. And so that's where it started. It started out with me going over to his property, and we would lift weights, we would box, we would throw some steaks on the grill, talk about life, and then go find other people to help. And that was the foundation that we grew.
Mm. You know, the libraries are filled with self-help books. The internet is filled with influencers giving you positive stuff, how change your life, all that. And that sounds good. I always say talk is cheap, actions are everything. What are some of the hard lessons that you had to learn that never seem to come up in interviews or you never see on social media? What are some of those hard lessons that don't really make it past the first level that you like to share?
One of the big turning points in all of that was, he took me through a process. And before that happened, I really had no relationship with any type of a higher power, and I didn't really care about God, and I really didn't think God cared about me. And we went through this process, and one of the big parts of that process was making amends for a lot of actions that I had done. And he made everything really simple for me, and what we did was, we came up with a list of people. I had burned a lot of people in my addiction, and done a lot of stuff that I was pretty ashamed of. And one of the things he had me do is write a list of all these people, places, whatever, that I had done some harm to. And I had three lists. I had one that was an easy list, and then I had one that was like, that's going to be a little tougher. And then I had a list of, like, I don't know how I could ever face that. And so we had little index cards, and there's a process. It's not just go and say, hey, I'm sorry I did this thing. That's not really what an amend is. It's changing the action, and adopting a lifestyle to where you aren't committing those things, and doing whatever it takes to make right those wrongs. And so I knocked out the easy one pretty quick. And during that process, there was a lot of people I hadn't seen in 5 or 6 years that I had burned. And during that process, these people just started showing up. And I'm not talking about just here and there. There was like 5 or 6 a week. And my first reaction in those situations would always be to tuck tail and run. And I'm a coward when it comes to that stuff. I don't want to be accountable. I don't want to face that. And somehow, in some way, I went and made those amends. And some of them went really smooth, and some of them did not go smooth at all. But nonetheless, I didn't die. And here I am today. And I remember in reflection going over everything that had led to that point, and how was I able to do this? How was I able to do that? And it got back to the point was, how the hell have I been clean and sober as long as I have? And it had been about a year at that point. And I hadn't been a year clean and sober probably since, I mean, I'm not trying to be grandiose or anything, probably since 9 years old, because we started dabbling at an early age. And how was I able to stay clean and sober to this point? And then it was at that moment that I believed in something much bigger than myself. And at that time, it was just a mustard seed. And I knew that something was out there making those people show up. How was I able to survive some of these situations that could have gone horribly wrong, and I wouldn't be here today, And that's when I started to believe in something bigger than myself, and that has changed my life more than anything ever. Is my faith in something bigger than me, and that is my guiding light.
I think that a lot of people are stuck, and for various reasons, whether it's addiction of any kind, but people get stuck and they want change and they want transformation. But they have to understand transformation and stuck is hard to get out to. It's hard work. And people think that they know what hard work is, but I don't think they really understand it. What do you say to people when they come back and go, but that's hard?
Well, the hard things in life is where we grow, and you can keep avoiding it. I have a 16-year-old son, and if the things that we do in life that are mistakes, we can't change the past. Whatever happened in the past is what happened. And facing those things today, and starting off and setting standards in your life to live by, it makes all the difference in the world. And whatever happened before was a learning experience. If I don't learn from that experience, it was a waste of time, and I'm going to repeat that thing. And like you were alluding to, it's like as soon as stuff gets hard, people want to go the other way. And that's where real growth happens. You know, you don't grow from sitting on the couch. You grow from going and immersing yourself in life, and doing the things that you don't want to do. The biggest outcomes and the biggest, you know, realizations about myself has always come in those situations. And so I'm always pursuing the next hard thing, and avoidance it stifles my growth.
Well, right on that. I mean, that's a perfect introduction to your Project Grit. And I just fucking love that name. I just think it's so cool. Can you talk us about what grit really means, what the acronym is, or where this came from and what you do? And you take hard to a new level. And there are so many kids and adults that are stuck, like you say, on the couch in front of the computer, not living their life, they're just existing. How does your Project Grit break all those chains? And tell us about that.
Sure. So how Project Grit started is I used to do ultra marathons, and on my off days, I would do what's called rucking. And what rucking is walking with a weighted backpack. And I'm an eighth generation Texan, and I always wanted to do something really hard for Texas Independence Day. And the story of this group of men called the Immortal 32 fell into my lap. I was in Gonzales, Texas with my son at the museum where the Come and Take It cannon is kept. I see all this stuff about Immortal 32, and I love history. And the curator there, I was like, what's this Immortal 32? And the Immortal 32 were 32 men from the Gonzales Ranging Company, and they were basically the law of that area. They later turned into the Texas Rangers. Their Travis was at the Alamo with 174 Texan soldiers in there. They were surrounded by 5,000 Mexican soldiers. He sent out a call for reinforcements. Two guys from the Gonzales Ranging Company intercepted that letter, took it to their leader, George Kimball, and said, "What do we do?" And he said, "There's no question. We gather as many men and we go to the Alamo." And they went, and they knew it was most likely a one-way ticket, but they went anyways for their brothers. So that story fell in my lap, and I said, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to do a 75-mile road march from Gonzales, Texas to the Alamo on Texas Independence Day. And the first year I did it, I called my buddy that I worked out with, Keith Busby, and I was like, "Hey, I got this great idea. You want to go for a 75-mile ruck?" His first response was, "Are you out of your mind?" Followed shortly by, "When are we doing it?" And that first year we went out, and we weren't prepared for it. We really didn't have any type of a game plan. We didn't know what to bring. We didn't know where we'd resupply, but we just went for it, and we did. And during that ruck, that starts off down this beautiful country road. The wildflowers are starting to bloom. There's all this history along that route. By nightfall, you arrive in Seguin, Texas, and you're about 35 miles into it, and you're pretty beat up, and you realize I'm not even halfway through. And that's when the seed of doubt starts to get into your head. At about mile 40, you hit I-10, and I-10 through Texas. Texas, we have what are called frontage roads, which is a side road that parallels the highway. And we arrived at this store. It was during COVID. We were planning on resupplying. We got to the store, closed due to COVID, and we're out of water. We're out of food. And the last store is 5 miles back. What do? Do we turn back and we add 10 miles to this, or do we press on? We decided to press on. At about mile 44, my buddy was suffering. And this stretch of road, it gets real mental. And you're beat up, it's cold, the roar of semis are going by, and you're just not feeling it, and you're ready to get this thing over with. I have somewhat of a competitive background, and I kept looking back, and my partner kept falling back. And it was the middle of the night, and I started getting frustrated. I started getting angry, and my mind was telling me, this guy's slowing me down. I know how to just hunker down and knock this thing out. He's making it take longer than it should. A lot of selfishness started coming in, and I was ready to leave him in the dark. And I turned around. I saw his headlamp about a quarter mile behind me, and I was like, he's a grown man. He can figure this out. I'm pressing on. Something on the side of that road that night made me turn around. And I walked back to him. The whole way back to him, I'm still cursing him, frustrated. And I got to him, and he's sitting on the ground, and I looked down at him, and he looked up at me and said, "I'm done. I can't go on." And when I looked down on him, I saw myself. I saw the version of myself when I was defeated and ready to just give up on life. And I thought about Kenny and how Kenny reached that hand out to me. I don't remember the exact words that I said. They weren't my words as far as I'm concerned. But I leaned down to him, gave him some words of encouragement, and said, "Hey, all you got to do is stand up, and we can finish this deal together, side by side. I won't ditch you." He eventually gets up, and we started walking. And we finished that 75-mile ruck for the first time that year. And at that moment that he stood up and we started walking together, that was the moment Project G.R.I.T was formed. And Project G.R.I.T's not about going some extreme distance. It's not about doing something extremely hard. It's about one person helping another person out when they're in their lowest point and helping them get through that and get to the other side and obtain the goal that you've set out to achieve. And that's what we did. Next year, I called him up and said, "Hey, we're doing it again," or it's just a cool story we tell over a campfire. We did it again, and we just finished our 7th year of it. Year 3, we introduced the public to come and do it. And we just completed our 7th run of it this year. And I've seen countless people's lives change from doing that. And that moment on the road, which now I call the soul crusher, because it's a turning point in that event to where you're beat and pretty much depleted, and something just somehow you get through it, and you don't get through it on your own. And that's the whole thing that Kenny taught me is, like it or not, we are tribe-like people and we need each other. And in this current society that we live in, we're so connected that we're disconnected. And that, trying to overcome that and show people, hey, let's get out and go out and be with nature, whatever, and side by side go and do something hard together that we couldn't complete on our own. And that's what Project Grit's all about. I hold multiple events throughout the year and rucking events primarily. And that's what we do. We go out and I have a whole group of people that show up, people that have never met, and meet out there on the trail, on the road. I mean, people that come from extreme opposites in life that would have never met or never connected throughout doing something like that together. And lifelong friendships are formed, and I think that's a connection that this world is missing. I'm all for comfort and I'm all for technology, but there's this missing piece that I think that we're losing that we need to bring back.
What a gift. A gift that you have been given and that you're sharing with others. I was almost afraid to start talking because I'm choking up over here with that story. Woo. Thank you for sharing. That was an outstanding and inspirational storyline there. What a great thing. Anyway, I wanted to go back and ask you about forgiveness. You talked about the people that you've burned, that you went back and had your, three level list of names. Um, I'd have to say that it's not just you, but I think we all regret certain situations that we've been in, that we've burned people. I know I have. I mean, maybe a little different than you have, maybe a lot different than you have, but how could you just give me another story about someone that you communicated with, that you maybe asked forgiveness or shared your regret with, because you're such a great storyteller. I would love to hear, what was one of the more challenging situations?
So in my past life, I was the guy that wasn't afraid to rob the store. I wasn't afraid to steal the car. I wasn't afraid to break into the house. Whatever I had to do is what I would do. And there are some particular people that I had taken a bunch of stuff from, and the monetary, there was no way I could ever replace that. And some of those people, they did not like me. They did not want anything to do with me. And there was some altercations that happened in some of those instances. And, I took what I had coming to me. There were other people that the same table had turned and they were forgiving. And they were like, hey, they saw the life I was living. They knew the life that I was living. They were like, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it, because what you have is the opportunity to go help other people. And there's been countless people that, it's funny because you never know what you're going to say or what you do could change someone's life. And there's been countless people that, I mean, I'm an open book. I'm not, there was a time in my life where I was ashamed of my past, but I know it made me the man I am today. And I don't wear it as a badge of honor, but I'm not afraid to tell you what I've done. But there's been countless people that have come to me just randomly and just like, hey, you did this one thing or you said this one thing. And it gave me a whole new outlook on things. And when those situations, I call them God winks. And it's funny that they usually show up when I'm kind of in a low spot, and these moments show up, and I call it a God wink, man, because it's like, okay, keep doing what you're doing. And I got you, but people come and tell me, there's something I've done or said that gave them a different perspective on things. That feeds my soul. And, I mean, I don't want to go into too many details about some of this stuff, but it means, like I said, some of them went well and some of them did not go well. But nonetheless, it's like I've adopted a mentality and a mindset and a standard for myself that I'm going to live up to this and I'm going to do everything I can be to be that. And I'm not perfect. We all fail. We're only human, and I learned those when those falls do happen. Those are learning experiences, like I alluded to before. If I don't learn from that, I'm doomed to.
Hey, thanks for sharing that. Terrence, is there anything you still have a battle with? I'm sure you probably do, but if you do, how do you deal with those internal battles? What helps you win that fight?
The thing that helps me win that fight is my relationship with God, first foremost. But I also I put myself around people that I inspire to be like, and I really think that God speaks to me through other people and actions that I see. And if you're the baddest dude in the room, you're in the wrong room. So I try to put myself around people that are going to push me and help me maintain those goals. Guys that are not afraid to say, "Hey, you're falling short here, dude. Step it up." I mean, I have thick skin. There's not a whole lot that you could do or say to me that hasn't been done or said to me, and that's a core thing is to surround myself around people that I inspire to be like.
Actually, that's something I talk with my kids about. If you want to know who you are, look at who your friends are. And you'll see. But so, Terrence, people are online and they're always searching for some motivation or purpose, discipline, whatever it is. You got your influencers all over the place. There's no short short list of those. But based on what you've experienced in your life, and what are they actually chasing, and how could that possibly be the wrong direction, you know, especially with what's online these days?
I think for myself, I mean, I spent a lot of years chasing that motivation, and motivation is great up to a certain point. If you're not willing to turn that motivation into some type of a discipline, you're always going to fall short. Motivation will disappear. And the discipline that you instill in your life, like I was saying, I set these standards for myself. And I think a lot of people are just trying to get out of the moment. And when I first got clean and sober, I just wanted out of the situation that I was in. I didn't really want to go and get clean and sober. I just wanted out of the situation that I was in. And that happened. I got out of the situation that I was in. And eventually, no discredit to my wife or my kids, but I obtained the goals that I wanted, but I felt like this mediocrity had set in. And I think a lot of people feel that mediocrity. There's got to be more than this. And that's when I started really pursuing the hard things in life. I mean, for me, in early sobriety and everything, the hard thing in life was to be a productive member of society and obtain these goals that I had set for myself. But there was a point that something had to feed my soul. And I found for myself in helping other people is what gives me that opportunity. One of the big things that was instilled in me was that, and I had a hard time with this in the beginning, was it's almost selfish of me to not give away what was freely given to me. And I think through that, if more people probably pursued that, what can I do for you versus what can you do for me? I think this world would be a lot better place.
Hey, thanks for that. You know, it, it's interesting with this. We always blame this recent generation for always blaming their parents for who they are today. Did you do you blame anyone for what you were when you were younger?
I did for a long time. And I mean, I had some role models that weren't the best role models in my life and people that I looked up to. And that when that came to a crashing end, I pretty much like, I don't want anything to do with anybody over the age of 25. And that was at an early age. And I thought most people that are older, they're all full of crap. They're going to tell you what they want to hear. And so I had a real bad distaste for that. And the, uh, the big thing for me was that I had to go and really like pursue what was on the other side of that, and like I alluded to earlier, it's all learning experiences, and blaming someone, it's not going to get you anywhere, and a lot of the stuff that Kenny taught me, he taught me how to look at things from a different angle. And I had this angle, well, you didn't grow up the way I did. You didn't have the role models I had, so and what that gave me a lot of is all I could see the differences in people. And I started, I looked at certain things as weaknesses. And then I remember there was an old lady. I remember exactly what she said, but it was on the topic of fear. And, I'm 6'3", 200 pounds, covered in tattoos. I'm a fucking tough guy, and this old lady was talking about fear. And I was like, holy shit, man, I got the exact same thing that lady has. And it gave me it showed me a way to look at things from a different angle, and like the people I used to blame, I see it more in a light like they were the teacher and I was the student. They were showing me what I don't want to be in life. And that's how I take on my relationship with my kids, I mean, I didn't have the best upbringing. I didn't have the worst, but it wasn't the best for sure. And the examples I was shown, instead of being, I look at it as a gift almost, that now I know what not to do. And if I do the opposite of that, maybe I'll get a different outcome. And I think so far I've done a pretty good job on my kids. They're pretty awesome kids. And, I'm pretty much an open, but especially once they hit the teen years, I started like telling some of my past story to them, and I think that that's gone a long way, and of course, every father is like, I'm going to be the father I always wanted, not the one I had. And, blaming someone else, I mean, that's just it was a situation of circumstances, and it made me the person I am today, and in all honesty, I wouldn't go back and change anything, I mean, there were some moments I wish that wouldn't have happened, but it got me where I am today. And I feel like I'm a pretty good person today, so blame is not going to get you very far. What's the saying? You point at someone, you got three more points straight back at you, so it's like, you need to look at yourself and be introspective on that.
Hey,
Yeah.
I want to interject for something. You've met people that from all kinds, probably millionaires and people off Skid Row. You've been all around your life. In this point in your life right now, I want to hear, what's your definition of success?
My definition of success, it's for me, surrounding myself with people that are like-minded in a lot of ways. I mean, the monetary things, the material things, those come and go. There'll be times of feast and there'll be times of famine. And in my mind, if you're successful, you're going to have people there in both times. It's not like they just want something from you. They want to be with you. And I feel like I've been really successful in that. I've established and been part of a community of people I mean, some rock stars, and it's all a gift, and it's success is it's not a material financial thing, because we live in this moment in this world that we could probably I mean, I could just make a phone call and something shows up at my gate, but those things don't last, it's temporary, success is having some lifelong friendships and building communities and having that foundation of people around me.
Terrence, do you believe that you have a superpower?
Yeah, he
Of
can ruck
if
for 75 miles.
Uh, I think if anything, if I have any type of superpower, it's to know that whatever I'm going through and whatever pain or discomfort I'm going through, I know that this too shall pass, and I can live that and not let those things stop me. I mean, I don't know. I'm just a regular guy. That's I'm not built different than any one of us, you know. I'm just a regular guy that has been shown a path that you can overcome just about anything that you could dream of, you know. You could do the thing that you didn't think you could do, you know? I mean, like last October, I did a 1,000-mile ruck across the entire state of Texas, and that was truly the
Yes.
hardest thing I've ever done.
Huh,
That's hard to hear.
how much was your backpack on this ruck? How much did it weigh?
40 pounds. So yeah, I started 17 miles south of Port Arthur where, excuse me, where Texas and Louisiana, the Gulf meet. And I trekked across the state to the top of Guadalupe Peak, the highest point in Texas, came off of Guadalupe Peak, headed east through El Paso, across the New Mexico border to the top of Mount Cristo Rey, where there's a statue of Christ. And I finished there, and it kind of depicts my story going from the bottom, being elevated up, and then giving it all to something bigger than myself.
Okay, I'm curious. I would love to go rucking, but I would have to listen to music or something along the way. What is going on in your head for all those miles?
I mean, so I camped out probably 90% of the time, just found a place on the side road, slept in the dirt. And I held 6 community events along the way where people could come and do a 10K with me. There was a whole lot of highs, there was a whole lot of lows. You know, there was a lot of pain, there was a lot of discomfort. I definitely, the person who started and the person who ended are 2 completely different people. And it really boiled down to, like I alluded to earlier, was the discipline. And there wasn't a morning that I woke up and I was motivated. My goal was to average 25 miles a day. Uh, I did it in 40 days. I averaged a little over 26 miles a day. It came out to 1,046 miles. During that time, I mean, there wasn't, like I said, there wasn't a morning I was motivated to get up and move, but I said, this is what we're doing, and get up, get off your ass, quit feeling sorry for yourself. And I broke it down. I made it
Yeah.
it wasn't 1,000 miles, it was 25 miles a day. And it wasn't 25 miles a day. I broke it into 5-mile increments. And it's like, all I got to do is get 5 miles. I could do 5 miles. And then when I'd make my 5 miles, I'd take a break. Okay, I got to do 5 more, so forth and so on. And like I was saying earlier, one of the things that I learned out there is how important community is and how important it is to have face-to-face conversations with people, share a coffee, share a meal, because those times were far and few between. And there was a lot of moments when I knew a community event was coming up that it was a bittersweet thing because I had to be somewhere. I had to be able to conversate with people. I had to be presentable, and I'm beat to hell. Everything hurts from the neck down, and I would anticipate those events and be excited to be able to share and have community. But I knew at the end of every one of those, it would be an extreme high, but I knew at the end of every one of those events, it would be an extreme low because you go from like feeling human again and having social interaction to walking right back into the hell that you just walked out of. And I leaned on God a lot, dude, a whole lot. And it definitely changed me as a person, gave me a new perspective on things.
It's funny because we all have our, Dr. Terry and I'm sure we have patients that they complain about not being more active and they can't get started in exercise or something, and I have to laugh because I was just having this conversation with a patient yesterday about, just get your ass up off the couch and walk around the block. And even that was like a challenge for them. And here you are, here you are doing 26 miles a day of pure
Walking
hell.
across Texas.
Yeah.
Eh, I
Wow.
swear to God, if you said you did it in August, I will just fall over right now. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I started in October, and I expected October to be a little cooler than it was. And for the probably the first 10 to 15 days, it was still 100 degrees out. And
ugh,
East Texas is extremely humid, so
Yeah.
every section of that, I kept thinking certain sections might be a little easier, but each one had its own demon. Each one had its own element to over. And the whole reason I did that, and it was kind of twofold, is I wasn't sure if I could do it. I wasn't sure that I could complete it in the time frame that I gave myself. I gave myself 40 days. I started on October 2nd. I finished on Veterans Day, November 11th, which October 2nd is significant. That was the first shots of the Texas Revolution. And of course, Veterans Day is significant. And I wasn't sure I could complete it in that time frame. And somehow I did. But the whole premise of the thing was to show people it's not about some idiot walking 1,000 miles across Texas. It's to show people that we're built for more than we think we're capable of. It's to show people that we're built for more that society says we're capable of. And I'm not expecting anybody to go out and do 1,000 miles to prove that. But whatever your heart is, if it's talking to a relative, if it's reading a book, whatever your level of heart is we should go and tackle those things. And like Kenny told me, find out what that's all about, and your purpose can be revealed from doing those things.
Let me ask you, is there, during those moments that are really heavy for you, and not literally, I'm talking about, I mean, heavy backpack is one thing, but I'm talking about like heavy emotionally. What is something that you might do to reset your emotion to bring you joy?
So great question. When which there was a lot of low moments, and there was a lot of physical pain, there was a lot of emotional pain, the disconnect. And I'm not really the crying type. I did some crying out there for sure. But I I look at what I've been through in life, and I look at where I am today. And all these like other hard events I've done, the emotional losses that I've experienced, that I know I got through those things somehow in some way. And I would just consider those are all pennies in my piggy bank. And when things got tough, I thought I would think back to other experiences that somehow I got through. Something got me through that. How did I get through that? And they would carry me. There was a lot of prayer out there. There was a lot of meditated out there. I also luckily we live in a world where I could make a phone call. And there were some times when I had to call somebody and be like, hey, I don't know, man. I need a prayer right now. I need some words of encouragement. Daniel was clutch for me on the emotional and spiritual side of things with all of that. And one of the big things, everybody should have a running buddy, somebody that is your I can talk to about anything, and especially as men, that's a really hard subject for us. And I ask everybody to you should have a running buddy that hey man, I got this great idea, dude, that's a stupid idea, don't do it, or that's a great idea, or I'm having a really hard time with this thing. And a lot of the times in all my experience has been that, like, a lot of times I know the answers. I just need someone on the other end, and I usually can answer my own dilemma before the conversation's over. And they might say some great words, they might not say a single word, but usually getting that out of here and just putting it out into the world makes it real. And I'm not carrying that baggage. And a lot of that happened along that way. And sometimes it was just me talking to myself, and sometimes it was me talking to a person. Bless you. But it's I think that is essential to getting through this life.
Advice, especially in this day and age. Or you wanted to ask him?
yeah. All right, you got people that you're inspired, whether it's this podcast, other podcasts you've been on, people you've talked to in your events. I mean, they may show up for an event and they're inspired, but they fail to act. And then you see them in like a year from now or talk to them and they're in the same boat they were in. How do you tweak the words and how do you help them when the words, the inspiration?
Yeah. So, man, we all do that. I do that. And what I tell people that show up, you just, when you show up, you just did the first hardest part. Walking through that door is the hardest part. Facing whatever demon that is, that's the hardest part, you know? And one of the things someone told me was you can't look at the past and sit there and dwell on it. You know, if you, what they say, if you have one step foot in the past and you have one in the future, you're crapping on your day. And today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. And
Nice.
so I can't truly change the future, but I know some of the actions I to do will dictate how my future goes. And my past is just my past. There's nothing in the world that I could do to change what happened. All I can focus, if I focus on what I do today, my outcome tomorrow will probably be better. And so that's what I just tell them. Hey, yeah, you failed. So what? What are you doing now? You know, I mean, if you want success in the future, put your focus in today. What am I doing today to get 1% better than I was yesterday? You know, and it's small steps, you know, I mean, it's like a thousand miles. I think I did the math. It was over 2 million steps, you know, I mean, it's just putting one foot in front of the other. And that's how you obtain whatever goal you have in life.
Ooh, that is some
I
great
want to
advice.
see your Whoop band or your Aura ring after that.
I want to see the sneakers he wears, the
Yeah.
hiking boots he wears.
So yeah, I did the entire event in one pair of shoes, and I
No,
did that purposefully.
I was going to ask you how
And
many shoes you went through. You went through one pair?
I purposely did it in one pair of shoes, and they're pretty beat up. They were a pair of Ultra Olympus, great shoe.
Yeah.
I say at about mile 600, my left foot seized up, bad Achilles tendon overuse on the top. And I probably heel strike probably for the next 400 miles. That shoe, the heel and it's down low. And then on the other shoe, the forefoot's worn way down because that's where I was putting all my power. There was tons of thorns in West Texas that I didn't take into account. I probably spent 45 minutes a day pulling thorns out of my shoe. That was a definite situation that I didn't plan on.
Before we go into our favorite section, I want to just give highlight to a mutual friend of ours. He was on our show. He's one of your best friends. You just talked about removing thorns out of his foot, and Daniel did one of your rucks with only one leg. Can you just, I kind of want to hear. He was so humble on the show. It just kind of goes, yeah, I rucked. It was kind of hard, but when the show was over, I thought about what it would be like. I like rucking, not your level by any means, but I like to go on rucks at least once a week. Can you just give us some inspiration, what you learned from Daniel and kind of talk a little bit about him?
Yeah, when Daniel reached out to me and said he was interested in doing the 75-mile ruck, I was like, wow, okay. I mean, because, you know, I think in my mind, he said, what do you think? I was like, it doesn't matter what I think. It's like, what do you think? Do you think you could do it? Do you want, and I explained, it's going to be you're going to face a lot of demons out there. It's going to be a world of hurt. And he said, I think I could do it. And I said, let's do it. If you're in, I'm in 100%. And I had never rucked with an amputee, so I really didn't know what to expect. And he had never gone over 15 miles as an amputee. I saw that the Austin Marathon was coming up, and it was 2 weeks before the event. And I said, hey, here's an opportunity. Let's go do 26 miles together. and they'll have the course mapped out the night before. We'll meet up at 2 a.m. and we'll ruck the Austin Marathon. And so we did that. And on that time, I learned a lot about how a prosthetic leg works and what you have to do to keep a prosthetic leg on the body. So we learned how to work together on that 26 miles, and we knocked it out. He hammered it out like a champ. When we did that 75 miler, that year I had 36 people show up, and we finished with 33. And his handle on Instagram is 3/4 cowboy. And I joke around, I was like, "No, we finished with 32 and 3/4." But I told him, you know, I think that there was a lot of people out there that would have tapped out, but they're watching you, what you're going through. Because whatever you're dealing with, you're looking at this guy that's doing this with one leg. And not only that, like the way a prosthetic leg works is there, I call it the bucket. There's another name for it that the stump goes into, and there's a sleeve that goes over the stump. And when you put it in that bucket, there's a little pressure relief valve, so it creates a vacuum seal. But when you start sweating, that bond comes loose. So and it got really hot that year. He's walking along, and his legs constantly wanting to fall off. So he's having to shove his stump back in there, and he was in a world of hurt, and but he was hammering it out like a straight up warrior, and people watching that. And I told him, dude, there's no way we would have finished with 33 had you not been there, because every person's out there. Whatever I'm going through, he's going through 10 times more. And if he can do this, I can do this. And he's such an inspiration. His story is amazing, and just an amazing person. One of the most humble guys. He won't sit there and try to pump himself up or anything, but that guy, I mean, like I said earlier, dude, I feel honored and blessed to call him one of my best friends.
His actions speak way louder than words could. And I even tell his story to some of my patients who need that moment of inspirations. He's an amazing guy. So now we're in our favorite section of the near the end of the program, and it's the rapid fire questions, Terrance. And if you're ready, there's 5 of them. They're requiring short answers. So are you ready for number 1? All right, here we go.
Let's go.
Listen, man, when everything gets loud and responsibilities, pressure, expectations, all that, what's the one thing that brings you back to you?
The thing that brings me back to me would be my faith and my family, and to lead by example.
Question number 2. What's inspiring you lately? And that has nothing to do with your past or your story. What's inspiring you these days?
Seeing other people go and do the things that they're afraid to do and overcome unsurmountable odds and persevere through that and become a better person at the end of the day.
You're definitely a servant. You love seeing other people succeed. That's great. Question number 3, what's something in today's world or even in self-improvement space, that just makes you kind of shake your head, blows you away?
Uh, a lot of the bro influencers get all in your face and loud and try to separate themselves like they're built from something else. And it's like, we're all humans. We all put our pants on the same way. We put our shoes on the same way. That we're all the same. We are all different, but we're also all the same.
Deal, man. Question number 4. For a guy who does what you do, is there one adventure or challenge that is on your bucket list that you haven't done yet?
Absolutely. There's always another mountain to climb. So when you get to one mountaintop, there's another one down the road. So I have a whole list of different things that I will overcome and achieve one day.
Yeah, but I want to hear what's one thing that's on your bucket list that you have either written down somewhere in the back of your mind that you're like, someday I'm going to do that. That's pretty gnarly?
I mean, I'd like to go down to Patagonia and do some treks down there. Right now, I mean, I'm working on a deal with another guy to overcome a really cool adventure that I can't give any details right now, but it's going to be pretty epic. And to be part of that is going to be a hell of an experience.
Oh, that's
Is there
good.
any adventure that doesn't involve rucking or or trail rucking that would be something cool that you've never done before that is on a bucket list?
Well, okay, yeah, I'm probably 90% done with the book that I've been writing. And we did do a documentary on the 1,000 Mile Ruck across Texas. And I've never done anything like that, which will be coming out later this year. So having the book done, I never knew I liked to write, but I found that writing is kind of like painting a picture with words. And I didn't know that it would be as inspirational for me to get that information out and on paper. So yeah, I never thought I would
Nice.
write a book.
Ah, you found another superpower. Very good. All right. Last question, Terrence. What is what is what is one thing that you want to leave your audience with that you've never been asked before or want to get out there?
Really, my big message is that we're all able to overcome things that we can't overcome. You know, my life story, you know, I very easily could have just become another statistic, and for some reason, I'm still here today. And I found that through doing the hard thing, the thing that I wanted to avoid, and reaching out to help another person. So I wish everybody could adopt that mentality and that lifestyle, that because I think the world would be a much better place. So, you know, my whole thing is I want to leave this world better than the way I found it.
Terrence, you're a great storyteller. I appreciate you sharing all your moments of inspiration and even desperation. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for the opportunity.